Well, you know it's week 9 when you can give your legislative report outside the Capitol. I'm going to go rapid fire through 19 of the bills we worked on this year, just give a brief explanation of what happened to each. But if you want the details, hear from us and our legislative allies, come to our report events. They'll be in early April. We'll take an hour, we'll feed you lunch, and take a deep dive into what happened on all these issues. So we're going to start with 3 bills dealing with protecting kids from obscenity. First, with websites. This is something we worked on last year, as you probably heard about, saying that these pornographic websites need to put in an age gate to try to keep kids off. Passed through with really good support this year. A step 2 that we were looking at was, okay, we've done websites, but what about app stores? They should be age gating as well, because also what they're essentially doing is each time you download these apps, there's those terms of service, which is a legal agreement, and kids can't sign legal agreements with companies, so parents should be involved there. The bill did not pass this year, but we have a lot of good support for next year. Third, dealing with obscenity in libraries and schools. Right now our law has this odd exemption where it says if you're a school, library, museum, none of the child protection laws or obscenity laws apply to you. It's a really bizarre exemption. So 1239 unfortunately did not pass this year, but it would have said that these publicly funded institutions, they're held at the same standard as every other citizen, every other private business. 3 parental rights bills. First, dealing with medical records. We heard early on in session that there's a problem here in South Dakota where the major health systems are locking parents out of their kids' records as soon as the kid turns 12. That bill, after a few tweaks, gained major support and flew through, so we were glad to see that pass. Senate Bill 113 would have been more general parental rights protection, saying that parental rights are fundamental, and if the state is going to take action against your parental rights, they need to prove that they had a compelling reason and that they were doing the least restrictive action. Unfortunately, that bill died on the House side this year. A third bill that was withdrawn and didn't actually get a full committee hearing dealt with parental rights, prenatal care, and doctors' offices. So it would have instituted a new framework essentially between how doctors, parents, and minors relate to each other with regard to medical care. So that bill was withdrawn. We had a lot of concerns with the troubling framework that it would have put into law, but again, that was withdrawn. 2 bills that are somewhat related, both dealing with biological realities, one in restrooms, one on birth certificates. So the restroom, locker room, overnight accommodations privacy bill has finally passed. This has been a decade-long effort, and many of you have been a part of this. The bill has finally passed through. But the birth certificate bill, saying that state documents should reflect biological realities, was not passed. 4 gambling bills, 2 of them dealing directly with video lottery. One would have increased the number of machines, the other would have increased the bet and win potential. Both of those were killed on the Senate side, one in committee, one on the floor. 2 gambling bills that were withdrawn, one would have dealt with horse betting, one with mobile sports betting. Both of those were withdrawn by the prime sponsor, presumably due to lack of support, but they didn't get their full hearing. 2 education bills. First, ESAs, Education Savings Account, School Choice, House Bill 1020. This would have opened up new opportunities for about 1,000 students across the state to really choose the best education that fits them. Unfortunately, the bill did not pass this year, but we've had a lot of great discussions and looking for the next steps. Another bill that did not pass on education is the 10 Commandments bill. This would have said that each classroom will post the 10 Commandments, and that 10 Commandments, Bill of Rights, Constitution, etc. need to be included in the curriculum. That bill was killed over on the House side. 2 elections bills. First, a 60% threshold. Right now, to amend the Constitution, as we saw this last election, if you want to amend the Constitution, you have to get 50% of the vote plus 1 more person. This will put on the 2026 ballot the question of, do the voters want a 60% threshold, a higher threshold for constitutional amendments? We think it's a really good idea. Amending the Constitution is a really sober thing. It's not something that should be done through the whims of a popular opinion at the time. Another bill that says, again, if you're going to amend the Constitution, rather than just going to Rapid City and Sioux Falls and getting all your signatures, you have to get a small portion of those signatures from each Senate district. You can still get a bunch of them from Rapid City and Sioux Falls, but a small portion needs to come from each Senate district rather than just 2 cities deciding whether or not it should be on the ballot. Minimum marriage age. Right now in South Dakota, a 16 or 17-year-old can get married if parents give consent for the person who's underage. We can probably all agree that it's pretty rare that this is a great idea, but there are times where it is the best option. If you have 2 young people who are committed to each other, the parents give their approval, maybe there's a pastor brought in, maybe there's a baby on the way. Should the state step in and say, no, it's illegal for you to get married, you should have that baby out of wedlock? We didn't think so, and we were glad that the Senate agreed and defeated the marriage age bill. Baby box bill. We saw in Sioux Falls last year a tragedy where an infant was found, passed away at a recycling center. Here in South Dakota, if a parent believes that they're in such a desperate situation where they just cannot raise the baby, they can surrender that newborn to like a fire station or a hospital and just give up their parental rights. But oftentimes they can't do that face to face. they're too intimidated, or they feel like they're in too tough of a spot, or maybe they're just still worried they'll get in trouble for giving up their baby. So a baby box can be placed in a hospital or fire station as just another way for the mom to anonymously give the baby up. Alarms go off and police and firemen are on the other side of the box within literally minutes, so the baby's very safe. But just gives desperate moms another option. Finally, a building with medical marijuana. We know here in the state the pot laws are pretty loose. Even our friend Representative Fred Deutsch, who when he was at the legislature, he was one of the primary opponents of medicinal and recreational marijuana. He went to one of these pop-up clinics, told them he had pain in his neck, and got his card pretty quickly. This bill would have attempted to more legitimize the doctor-patient relationship rather than the pop-ups, but that bill was killed in the first committee. So it's a rapid fire of 19 of the bills we worked on this year. If you want to come to our legislative report events, we'd love to see you, and we'll take a deeper dive into what happened with each of these bills, what the ones that passed will do, and which ones that failed, what the future plans are. We'd love to see you. Thanks for another great year, guys.